Is that working? That's worked beautifully. Hobart bring us to review. Here we are. So we're going to review the teams in order from 9th to first place, because we had 9 teams at this tournament. We're going to talk a bit about just talk about the players on the team, generally how it looked like they were playing the tournament. Obviously, we might be wrong about some things. If we are and someone in chat knows we're wrong, please let us know and we can correct ourselves. After that, we'll do a quick chat about like some of the standout players on the team, any standout moments, and then we'll talk a bit about what that team and the players can look to improve on for the next tournament or for nationals. So without further ado, let's get to it. In 9th place, we had Hobart Cerberus.
Drum roll, please.
Wow, too late. I think Spider's delayed by 3 seconds. That was awkward. But that's okay. That's good. Predicted placing was 9th place. Final placing, 9th place. So on the team, we had Sped, Nelly, Rizla, Captain Morgan, Dominator, Disney, and Flick. 7-man team for this pre-nuts. The team had an average score of 5,349, average tag ratio of 0.86, average score ratio of 0.77, GRC of 0.75. 0.88 for destroys, 0.55 for denies, and 0.97 for denies against them. These are the your guys, your boys,
just to be clear,
your girls, your ladies.
That's 5k like average per player, right? Their team didn't do that bad, did it?
So that's just like their individual scores averaged
cool.
up.
Cool. Yeah, nice. I think they struggled to fit Disney into the team, obviously. And I think Max was dying of sickness, which he gave to everyone, so that was super cool of him.
Cool.
Yeah. So these guys, and the main thing though is just the standard of competition. This one was a lot higher, so they kind of struggled to match up with teams that are just like have better players. It's pretty much that simple.
Crazy.
I thought they played it all right. I think the 4-man game right before finals probably broke their morale a bit, which is hilarious because they had 7 players. But anyway, I think their pack on packs improved a bit. Notably, you've got like Sped absolutely going off this comp. I didn't go too much in depth last time because he didn't quite play as amazing as I was hoping for, but this comp he really proved it. He's been playing for 6 months, which is insane. And he's like 12th on the solo ladder or something, like up with cans and all that stuff. So I was very impressed with how he played. Keeping a positive tag ratio against better teams in like typically far roles is pretty rough to do. So he played awesome, and you had Nelly in a similar role, like doing amazing too. What did you guys see from these guys?
I'll let Spider go first since I wasn't there as well. Take it away, Mr. Lachlan Whittington.
Wow, full name.
Yeah.
I think we said it heaps in the like preview or the video before pre-nats, but the teams here was like a lot higher in skill level, and so there was a very noticeable like lower dimension to the competition. But the one thing like with this team that I was stoked about was it's very easy for teams that know they're losing to just do dumb things in the game. But every time we verse these guys, they just like played it out, which I think will like teach them a lot rather than just being like, oh, we're losing, let's just do something. The fact that they could play it out each time, I think is going to benefit them in the long run, and just kind of understanding like where they sit in the competition.
Yeah, that's really good to see that they're still making good decisions even when getting crushed. I'm a big fan of that. It's always like at training, it's like, yeah, you may not ever win, but play every situation the best that it can be played, and just that's all you can aim for.
I feel like some of us can't even do that sometimes. Whenever I know I'm out of a game, I'm like,
well, time to just, I don't know, mess around, run around, shoot people.
Time for solo scores. Screw the team.
I think that's definitely That's definitely an important thing to train and practice, right? Is like the idea when you're losing a game to not just like, throw it all out the window, like to try and like do what you can to stay in the, like to get back in the game. And it's only like at the point where like there's nothing, like you're so far out of it that you've got nothing left to do but like do like a dump or something, just like to try and catch up. Yeah, I think that's definitely a really good thing. You see it all the time at Nats, like some of the best teams will start the game coming second or like even losing the game, down bases, maybe not even up on pack, but they keep their composure. They know the responses they need to do, the changes they need to make to like put themselves back in the game. And then once they're back in the game, they go back to like playing a standard game, like, keep doing like the same thing you were doing. So yeah, definitely that's cool to hear that they were still trying to play the game out even to the bitter end. Good habit to make, I think.
Someone told me once when I was like new that there's like a good loss and a bad loss. And a bad loss is like when you completely throw the game, you like deserve to lose. And then there's like a good loss, which is you did everything perfectly, but you just got beaten. Like the other teams were just purely better than you and like made better moves. And I think that's like describes these guys perfectly at pre-2 for most of the games. There were some games where it kind of blew out for them, but the ones that like I have in my head is where they like kept their cool and just kind of knew that they were behind, but they weren't going for a bad loss. They wanted to keep it as like a good loss, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think they. Do we know what the highest team they beat was? I remember them like getting some good wins that wasn't really expected from them.
Surely they beat us. We threw so many games.
Yeah, I can't really remember. I only watched the last day because I was commentating like from the finals onwards. So I didn't see much of these guys playing in the lead up to that, unfortunately.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, Polchrome said they beat us, and I'm pretty sure I remember it. So
taking some scalps, huh?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Who's your standout player for this team, guys? Both of yous.
Gotta be Sped.
Spodge?
I don't know. I don't think I was like hyper focused really watching too many people. I think at pre-1 it was more like a lot of these people were new to me, and so I was like kind of scalping them out a little bit and like seeing who they were. But at pre-2 it was like similar kind of stuff from most of them. So I don't think I have like a particular standout player.
Yeah, well, I guess Sped definitely had was leading the team in stats in every regard, I think. Unless you count he was getting denied more often, but I'm guessing if you're in a position where you're shooting more bases, getting more bases, you're probably in a position where you're going to be getting denied more as well. So I think that's to be expected to a level. So at 1.3 base average is nothing to scoff at, and you kind of said before, Runt, being able to maintain a positive tag ratio throughout this tournament against the level of players that were there is really impressive. Well done to him.
I guess to be fair to that, he a lot of the time I think his role was like get a base or two and then go back and anchor, because he's the main player on the team that like is stable on the panels and has good discipline. So I think that probably does factor into the good stats, but I was very impressed nonetheless.
And to wrap this team up, what have you got in terms of improvements they can make to let's just say improvements they can make before Pre-Nets 3, since they'll probably be at that one?
I really want to see more independent thought from some of the newer players. I know it's hard, but Dom is still kind of telling them exactly where to go at each point in time, and they won't really do anything without getting direction from Dom first, which is kind of how teams start off. But after you've been playing together for like 6 months or so, you kind of need to just like have your like attackers just make their own calls of when to bounce, when to go home, when to swap out and all that stuff, and just have the captain just trust that they're going to come back at the right time, pass on information, but not necessarily wait around for more instruction, that sort of stuff.
I think it's similar to that, is like trying to take more opportunity. Feel like I can just repeat what Brendan said. Max said it in the chat as well, but it seems like it was Josh and him just kind of like doing their thing, and then everyone else following along. And obviously players start improving better as a whole if they start making decisions by themselves. And then if that decision backfires, you just kind of cop it and you be like, yeah, well, like you understand that it didn't work, and just take the hit for it and then just keep playing. I think the one thing that this team, I don't know them all personally, but I feel like this team can just come out and debrief like any sort of game, and then move on pretty quick. I don't think it's going to be too much like attitude or aggressiveness. So I think taking a couple of risks and stuff moving forward will definitely set them up for nationals. It's only like pre-2 as well. Like they've still got heaps of time to like practice and improve before it really matters. So
yeah, and I guess the frame to like the way you can think about that during your like any game you're playing, like whether it's like just team games and training, or you're at pre-nats or you're at nats or anything, like asking in every given moment, like, am I being effective right now? And if the answer to that is no, then there's probably something you could be doing that you're not right now. And like Spider kind of said, for the newer teams, less experienced players, you know, they might not know what the right thing to do is, or they might not have much direction, but just like, you know, play around with doing stuff. Obviously, like there's a level of like, if you're the last line and you're like not feeling like you're being effective, maybe don't go and like just leave and not tell anyone and go to the other side of the arena and just play solos. There's a level where it's like, okay, like simmer down. But you know, like if you're a door defender, say, and your base isn't being attacked and you're just standing like close to your baseline, you know, no one's getting through, but like also, you know, you could probably afford to be like a few panels pushed up and potentially getting some extra tags, or even better, maybe pushing up just far enough that you can shoot one player that your team is attacking, and that's the tag that ends up getting your you know, cracking the base open for your team. So asking at any given moment, am I being effective right now? And then just playing around with like just pushing the envelope in terms of what you can do in any given position. And then if you make the wrong call, like you overextend or you do anything wrong, like, you know, you should almost be like happy about that, especially if it's like in your training, or if it's at pre-nuts. Like that just means that's a mistake you won't be making when you get to nationals if you acknowledge it and you address like how to what's wrong with it and how to fix it. So anyway, any final thoughts for the team before we move on? Happy days. All right, moving on to our 8th place team.
Wow.
What?
Wow.
No one said anything.
No.
Moving on to our 8th place team. Did I miss something? No one said anything.
I'm confused too.
Whatever. We're moving on. 8th place, we had Catalorcas, predicted placing 5th. On the team, we had Hybrid, Lilbo, Wamfox, Mr. Me, Seeks, and Simi Bear. This team was actually tied with the biggest movers in terms of like predictions versus final placing, and there were three down from their predictions. The other one was Archangels, and they went like the other way. But yeah, in terms of, you know, just some standout stats, Wamfox led the competition in terms of denies 4. So well done to Wamfox. Who wants to start off? Spider, how about you go first? Runt took the last one. How did it appear that they were playing?
I think their placement kind of tells you in a nice way how they were going. I think at pre-1, some of these players attended and they got the grasp around it, and then pre-2, the team shifted a little bit, and I just don't think it worked, and I don't think they think it worked either. I remember talking to a few of them individually, and there's a few little like crisis moments. They like mixed heaps of things up, and just I don't think the team was working as well as we hoped. Like you look at all the players on here, and there's not really like a super weak player, especially like being a new system. They're all pretty like good players compared to other people around. So you think you'd expect them on paper to do well, but it's just another one of those classic examples of like two different teams coming together, just not having that synergy and cohesion, two different like mentalities of how the game should be played. I think in games, like we always saw them as a bit of a threat because it was a bit of a coin flip. Like, do they do well? Do they not do well? I think on paper, like this team just beats us every time. But the one thing that we work on heaps is that cohesion. And I guess because we play as a full team, every time we verse them, that's the one thing that beats like this team in a game. So I'm not sure what it comes down to because they kind of kept it close to themselves, but hopefully they understand like where the fallout was.
Yeah, I think it is really interesting to see that they all picked up the new system pretty well. Like they've all got tag ratios pretty much at like 1 or above or whatever. Like they proved as expected that they're all like very solid players. I think the main thing I would have seen is they did some quite complex strategies, which is usually a good thing, but with a team of interstate players, I think it's very risky to try it. So the one I'm specifically referring to, I'm not sure if it was mainly a thing that we only saw in our games or if other teams saw it as well, is kind of that thing going into the comp we were talking about of that base goes down, 3-man attack to the closest base and then like back within the 30 seconds before the base comes back up. Which I think worked kind of well at the start of the comp, but throughout the comp it seemed to just like players would overextend or need to reload or something, or players would miss the comp that they're attacking, stuff like that, and players just wouldn't end up back in time with a full set defense within 30 seconds. I know we definitely went, oh cool, they're doing their attack, let's just lock down the base for 30 and we'll be in here by the time they get back, that sort of thing. So I think it's a strategy that can work, but it's just not something I think you can really do with like a team that hasn't really played together before, because the timing you need to be amazing with it, and if someone has to reload, you can seriously screw yourself. So yeah, an interesting strat, but I'm not sure if it was the play with the newer team. I think if they just ran a more standard sort of 3-2, just got bases, shot stuff, they maybe would have done better.
Yeah, I guess it's the thing we always say in the predictions about teams that are like mixed, like whether like regardless of how many players or states it is it's there's always running the risk of like whether you're going to be able to get that cohesion going, like once you start and you've only got like, you don't have very much time over the course of a pre-nats to like work on that cohesion. Obviously all of these players like for the most part, like a lot of them have played together. Like obviously Simi, Hybrid, Mr. Meeseeks are together. Simi has played on a pre-nuts team with Wham before. So there is like some, and AJ was on that same team as well. So there is some potential for cohesion there, but it's just like, yeah, they weren't able to put it together. And to speak to what Runt was talking about, I actually did see it on the stream on the last day. It might have been like towards the end of Cascade 2. But yeah, this little execute of like when your base goes down, your defenders rush out to a base to try and like equalize, basically, to make that point that base that they just got like almost like meaningless in a way, because you've just balanced it out. It's a good way of like keeping yourself in the game and like not letting a team run away on bases on you. But it definitely takes there's a lot of things to consider. Like if you need to reload and you go and do your blitz, then by the time you get back, if you haven't run out of lives doing your blitz or shots, by the time you do get back, you are only going to have like one life, or like, a couple of shots left. So I think, figuring out things like what your priority is when the base goes down. Is it to go and blitz or is it go and reload? And then also, knowing to not overstay your welcome, knowing when to overstay your welcome, things like that. And it takes quite, it's something. I don't know if you boys can correct me, but I haven't really seen like this whole like blitz, like when the base goes down, execute like happening very much like in recent years. So it's something that I feel like the whole community is kind of figuring out. So maybe at some point in the future, when like everyone just knows what's going on when you do your blitz, teams can like pull this off. But for the meantime, when it's like something that's relatively new, I definitely saw it on stream. It cost them a few bases where they weren't able to get back in time.
I think it is a Hobart specific thing that we're seeing, like a Hobart maze specific thing, because now Queensland, Adelaide, and this WA Queensland team have all like had a very solid crack at it, which kind of implies that the maze design is beneficial to it, which makes sense because bases are super close, but B, they're not lockable, so throwing numbers in chaos can be a very good way, whereas in Darwin, if you threw numbers, you'd just be lining up 3 dead players, and that's our other small maze example. But Hobart, because it's so much about just heavily controlling the door that you're trying to attack a base through, numbers are a really good way to do that. So it is a really cool strategy, and I think it's gonna definitely have some legs by Nats once teams are practicing it and like have it down for Nats.
We definitely.
You guys, Spider.
We've definitely used it heaps in Sydney. I think most people know by now, but our arena is like very different and special. And because our bases are like in a line, you can hit, if you're on one of the outside bases, you can like do a blitz hit towards the middle base and not worry about it, because like no one runs past you. So you can just like push in one direction and no one's going to sneak around. They have to run like straight past you. So we've always done it in Sydney comfortably, and it's very effective. But this is the first arena where like it's possible, I guess, which is what we just said. But there's such a high risk of like, if you push real hard, the other team just sees it and then they just run around and get behind you and straight in your base. And when you come home, you're just like dropping another one. So I think it's what you said, Ryan. It's like understanding how hard to push, how many people you send, and how long you actually stay there for. And it's not something you can just like have rock solid. It's going to change. There's so many different factors that change that kind of like decision making point. Because sometimes you do want to stay, and it's worth it. But then others, you just have to cut your loss, and it's really hard to do that.
Sometimes it's like, well, my defenders are going to be mad at me, but I'm pretty sure I'm in the right place, so I'll just ask for forgiveness later. The door comes, we maybe get a base.
Well, since this was a mixed team, I imagine we won't see them. And I mean, like the teams for Prenats 3 have come in. I'm pretty sure all of these people are going on their actual teams, so they're not going to be playing Prenats 3 together. But is there anything you guys saw in terms of individual play? Points for improvement for any of these players? Probably like Helios 2 specific, I guess.
I'll go. I think standout for me was Wamfox. He's always a good player, right? But he has changed his playstyle a lot since I last saw him. I don't know if it's the packs or his fitness, but he was moving around, jetting around, and like really mobile, which I think is why he got so many denials, is because you weren't really expecting it from him, and then he just like lunge a base door or like scurry around to the other door. I thought that was really cool to see from a typically more static player.
I think Meeseeks at Pre-1 did a lot of last lining, and I think it didn't work at all. But this comp, he was like on a door, and I think for him, that's like, he just needs to be there. The way he plays is similar to like old Wham Fox, and I completely agree with what you said, Brendan. I think Wham's just like, it's a funny conversation, but at the start of the comp, Pre-2 was his first time playing Helios 2, and he was like, I kind of like it. Like, it's fresh. It's cool. I think it'll create a gap. And then, like, the next day I spoke to him and he's like, no, this is messed up. Like, I hate it. So, I think it flicks something in him, but I don't know how he feels about it, but I think I'm really just keen to see, yes, his playstyle is going to have to change, but, like, I want it to. I'm keen. The same things you saw, I think most people saw that were in the arena. And yeah, I'm loving it. I want to see more Wham just like running laps.
Happy days. Do we have any final thoughts for the team before we move on to the 7th place team?
I don't think so.
No, I think we're good.
We are good. Alrighty. Well done to Catalorcas. Definitely not the result that they wanted, but hopefully, the whole point of these pre-nights is to learn as much as you can. So hopefully they all drew something from this experience, and we'll see you all at pre-nights 3 in your full teams, which is pre-nights 3 is going to be nuts. Maybe we'll talk a little bit at the end about pre-nights 3, the team list so far, because it's looking bonkers. Anyway, 7th place, we had Adelaide Aegis, predicted 8th placing. And we had Mikey, Wardy, Exile, Pogsley, Pendragon, and SSG. No like massive like leading stats for this team, other than Pendragon, SSG didn't get denied very much at all, but I think they also weren't attacking very much, so that's kind of to be expected. I'm gonna let you guys like take the charge for all of these. I know these are my guys, but I also I wasn't there and I only got to watch the last game, so I watched them play like 2 games. I'm sorry. I should have watched more to prepare for this, but you know, I'm an adult and I do things, and I can't just be sitting around watching laser tag all the time. All right.
Yeah, it's being
So,
humble is hard.
Run, you can take this one away, mate.
Are you guys are saying the tag ratios? Yeah, this is insane. To pull a result like they did, with when your team is just getting beaten pack on pack, is amazing. I think that speaks to like playing the maze well and good captaining, to be honest, because it kind of just shows that the other teams in the arena were just better, but they still kept on pulling wins. So I think you love to see that. That is an amazing result out of that. Yes, it'll speak to they probably need to work on their pack game, maybe get used to these packs, obviously, but like pulling wins when your whole team's going negative, that's sick.
Yeah, it's happy days, huh?
Yeah, so I think playing these guys, they felt amazingly structured, and I think it reflects that. Their structure was really solid. They were just playing, from what I saw, for the most part, just like a standard 3-2, but they were playing it well. Their switchovers were clean. Their defenders didn't seem to overextend much. They were pushing for points. I really like to just see like just clean play style, especially from these like newer teams. And they had 2 subs in it, so I was very impressed with what I saw from these guys, and I think their result spoke to how well they played it.
Yeah, Sparty, you got any bits to add?
Yeah, I think when you look at their ratios, something I noticed like playing against these guys is whenever you push their base, it was easy to like get through one side. But a lot of the bases, like if you get through one side, the other side can just turn and like kill you as you run in. And I think that's where these guys like fell, but also did really well. Is it was easy to get through them, but not all the way. Like as soon as you got through one side, the other side would turn and be in the right spot to like deactivate you. And they constantly like had each other's back in their defenses, which I found was like interesting because it's really hard to do that.
Yeah, that is
really
beautiful to see. That is an amazing skill to have.
It's really hard to like see that happen. So I think if they can like win their one-on-one duels more and rely on that a bit less, I think like as you mentioned, their coordination for a team of this level was like what you would expect from most other like higher tier teams. So I think that's like the one thing that they can work on and like keep under their belt and like take pride with that. When you have one thing that you can do really well, you got to like work on everything else, but also not lose it.
Yeah.
Kind of like keep it close to you and be like, yeah, we are good at this.
Yeah, so from watching the stream and like talking to them like once they got back, my understanding is that they were swapping between Pogsley and SSG being the last line. Pendragon and Exile were usually on the doors. Mikey was playing like a mid position, and I think maybe initially, so Waddy is going to be, this is like Aegis, but with Mikey and Exile are the subs. But on the actual Aegis, Waddy is like the in-game leader and the like the lead attacker as well. But I think I don't know at what point, but at some point they kind of changed where Waddy was still like the lead attacker, but Mikey was kind of making like the big strategic decisions from the mid position and occasionally like pushing up, finding where Waddy was, and they would like suddenly attack a base together and then like reset. So it became more of like a 3-1-1. I guess, with Mikey being a little bit more conservative. And then, Waddy was just going off between the bases and causing an absolute ruckus. And occasionally Mikey would just rock up and they'll get a base or something. So, I'm really, really happy with the placing of these guys. I knew they definitely like from like, obviously I train with them all the time. So I know what I see from them in training, and I knew, that they'd be able to pull something together if they just like stayed disciplined, stayed structured, stick to all the stuff that we like learn and we know in training, and just like apply it to a new arena. So very, very nicely done, Aegis. What was your standout player for this team, guys?
From what I saw in game, I'd probably go with Pugsley. I think I know going into the comp we were kind of going, who's going to anchor? I thought Pugsley did a good job of it. He was by no means a free kill. He wasn't sticking his phaser out when he didn't need to, and I think he was the only one I saw anchoring in the games I played them in. But Pugsley probably caused the most grief for me out of anyone on their team, just because he was really nice and solid in that last line.
I think it's like contradicts that heaps. But I really liked how SSG was like last lining. The only downside is that she can't turn quick enough, and so it's like she's good when she's watching one door and it's like locked down, but if she has to spin quickly, she's not accurate. But I think that's something you can train very easily and focus on. And I think that's the one thing that like Pogsley was a bit more like ready for. And so I think that's where you saw that. But yeah, lots of the games I like watched back because we haven't versed these guys heaps. I noticed that was like the biggest downfall, and I think we capitalized on that heaps. So I think it's easy to fix, but I think both of them kind of went hand in hand.
Yeah, nice. To be clear, I genuinely just did not play a game where SSG was anchoring, so I only saw the one of them. But yeah, that's good to see.
In terms of like her not swapping quick enough, was it like she was doing like a switch hold thing and she just wasn't switching quick enough and reacting quick enough, or was it like a high hold kind of thing and not like turning quick enough?
Yeah, it's like high hold and turning to low posture. That's just I don't think they like. I think the comms were there, but I don't think the reaction was like quick enough. So maybe the comms need to like change to be slightly earlier or something. It's really like without sitting there and analyzing completely. I'm not sure what the downfall is, but yeah.
So it'd be like green tea, like watching like the left door and then getting a right door come and having to like okay. Well, there you go, Rebecca. If you're watching this, there's a little something for you to work on as your switches and stuff. But in terms of the team as a whole, now like I said before, Mikey is on Aftershock, Exile is on Anomaly, but the other four make up Adelaide Aegis with like they've got 3 other players. So what advice would you give to this team to improve? They're not going to be at pre-nats 3, so we'll say what advice would you give for them to improve before Nationals comes around?
It's going to be rough to say it, but just improving your pack on pack play, that's not going to happen overnight. It obviously will improve, and I think that should be a focus. But this team might need to get a bit more practice taking bases because they have one of the lower base destroys averages. But if you want to be a defensive team, which I think they do, you either need to like have really good pack on pack stats, or you need to be capable of like being an offensive team and getting a bunch of bases. So I think probably work on base taking so that if you can't control the game and if you're losing on pack points, you have that foundation of a bunch of players that are capable of destroying bases. Because I think they have the structure to play a defensive game. I think they have the structure to play an offensive game, just not quite the pack skill to play a defensive game and go really far, and not the experience to play an aggressive game and go really far. So I think they need one or the other to go really far and push that, I think, upper mid tier that they could with that experience.
And that's what we said a lot in our Nats reviews. A lot of the teams in the mid tier that were like very good mid tier teams, like they had something that they were really good at. They didn't necessarily have both sides of the coin, right? And that was one of the things that separated the mid tier from the top tier teams. But they just had like you said, if they play a defensive game, their field points were always like really good and really high tag ratios. And if they played an offensive game, you know, they were able to crack bases and stuff. So yeah, this kind of echoes the thing that we were talking a lot in the post Zoltak 2022 review. Spider, you got any bits of advice for the Aegis team before Nationals?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of the same, just constantly echoing. But I guess it's like good because it's obvious and we both see the same thing. I think their last line is like good enough. I don't think they need to like drill that too hard. Couple minor like things that you can work on and always try and get a bit better with. I think the biggest weakness is probably the doors. I think all you need is just more confidence. So it's like standing off against someone you know is better than you, but just like backing yourself and being really confident with that decision. Because I saw like when you're sitting back, you watch them play one way and then you like run up to them and you watch them in different situations and they like change what they're doing because of who they're versing. And I think you just kind of got to like back yourself a bit more. And be like, especially being the team that plays defensive and like your teammates cover your back, like you can lose and then just like have better comms and stuff like that. But I think the obvious area of improvement is bases, and can strongly relate to that. So I know it's like hard, but I get excited when we look at a team like this, because it's what I feel is just like having your defense down, being pretty smart in the way that your defense is set up, but just not finding that base opportunity. So yeah, if they figure anything out, send us a message.
Cool. Alrighty. Thank you very much for the kind words, guys. Well done to Aegis. Very proud of all of you guys for your placing in seventh placing, beating your predictions by 1. And we'll won't see you at Pre-Nats 3, but we'll see you at Nationals. So
I think it's the kind of team that just does well in double elims.
Yeah. I think Adelaide Aegis actually in Bendigo, similar variation of the team. I think they had one of the biggest climbs of the comp as well. So they ended up finishing in 16th place, I believe. So